Today's video is going to hit for the vast majority of you because today we are analyzing the man who is apparently the most beloved Metaphor Revantatio character. Today we analyze Leon Strohl the Haliatus, the reigning king of Atlus's character poll in which fans voted for their favorite character. While I may be shocked that he finished a convincing #1, I can honestly tell you that I'm fully aware of the reasons why, and I hope they become clear by the end of this video. Strohl is a complex character who manages to be a virtuous paragon that is simultaneously very raw and relatable in terms of the way that he processes things and exists in the world. Before we continue, I hope you know that when you speak, I listen. And in our last video where we analyzed the legend that is Luis Guillaber, many of you mentioned that you enjoyed how easy the video was to follow along, which is in spite of the fact that we covered a lot of deep concepts. So let's continue with the format that we used in the last video. To do so, I've broken this analysis into 4 sections: Strohl as an individual, his role in the story, his key relationships, and his hidden symbolisms. Let's head back to Uchronia and discuss. Let's start this video where Strohl himself would probably start, were you to ask him to give an account of himself.
A noble's duty is to protect their people. I shall fight as the noble I am. Any good noble knows how to dance.
Hey, yo.
That's right. Let's start with illuminating what exactly Strohl's nobility means for his character. While it may stick out to you or you may find it annoying, it's not an oversight from the writers that Strohl is constantly mentioning his status as a noble. This in itself is a thread for us to follow, and should we pull it, we can unravel the core determinants that make Strohl the way that he is. Strohl isn't just a Clamar, which along with the Rusant are the 2 top races in the world. He also belonged to a noble family that hailed from the village Halia. When Strohl was a child, his village was attacked by a human, and to his knowledge, everyone he knew, including his parents, died. Let's talk about his upbringing prior to this happening. At one point in the game, Strohl clearly defines what exactly nobility is in the world of Metaphor Revantatio. He explains that to be lord of a prosperous house is the ambition of all nobles in the country. He defines what is, quite frankly, an archaic system, explaining how forging aristocratic alliances and currying favor from royals are typical activities for nobles, and he also explains that the typical path a noble takes in life would be marrying some wealthy lord's daughter and then dutifully planning out the siring of heirs. To get the point across, he even mentions that if he had a daughter, her hand would be promised to another family at birth. So you see, these are all quite standard contemplations for nobles. But here's the thing, Strohl's parents were very atypical. In spite of their noble status, they were magnanimous individuals who never treated others as lesser people, which is reflected in personal accounts of them that we encounter in the game, and the fact that Strohl's father constantly did charity work in the capital. So all things considered, prior to the human attack on the village, Strohl had it great and enjoyed a privileged life that very few people did. But this foundation manifests in a really interesting way after the human attack on his village. We meet Strohl 7 years after the attack had happened, and as we spend time with him, we get hints here and there into the fact that deep down, Strohl harbors the sense that he is a failure. But why is this? Every time we see Strohl do or say something, he comes across as extremely competent, inventive, clever, kind. So how could he have such a low opinion of himself hidden within? To be honest, you really have to read between the lines on this one because a lot of it isn't said explicitly, so I'll try my best to illustrate this in a way that makes sense. Strohl has a low opinion of himself because he got it in his head that he owes a debt to his parents and his people, and that he was and is a disappointment to his parents, who he has on a pedestal as just the absolute best. This sentiment is compounded by the fact that Strohl is a noble. As a noble, there is a clear expectation of being of use for your house. Perhaps even more so for Strohl being the child of righteous nobles. For example, something his parents constantly said to him was, "A nobleman is the shield in his people's hands, durable enough to protect them, but light enough to carry, else what value does he have?" To quickly explain, basically this quote means that Strohl's parents were telling him that it was a noble's job to protect others without infringing upon their freedoms or adding an unbearable weight to their lives. In less words, their mantra was to be selfless and to leverage their privilege on behalf of others. So you can see the magnitude of the gravity of expectation that Strohl grew up with. The unfathomable weight of responsibility wasn't just his noble status, but his parents' ideal of what a noble should be. And Strohl doesn't feel like he was of use for House Halia. After all, it was destroyed as he powerlessly watched, and prior to that, he didn't do anything of significance. So you see, because Strohl's parents died when he was young, they never got to see the man that he grew into. They never got to see that they were effective parents whose love and morals serve as Strohl's compass in life. He was right at the end of his childhood when they passed, and children are often petulant and ignorant. I think he struggles with having, by all accounts, perfect parents because as he grows into a fully realized adult and understands the immensity of his parents' quality, he begins to think that they must have been disappointed in him because he wasn't even close to their ideal when they were still alive. But here's the thing, Strohl was a child. Strohl's parents didn't expect him to be perfect and righteous and obedient. They loved him and supported him unconditionally and believed that he would come good. So to bring this full circle, the reason that Strohl is a broken record when it comes to mentioning that he's a noble is because he's overcompensating. Strohl is in a perpetual state of trying to prove himself, of trying to be of value to others. He is constantly trying to live up to his parents' ideal of a noble. What's admirable about Strohl in his pursuit of the Halietis noble ideal is that he's largely successful in spite of his emotional turmoil within. He even confides in you at one point that in spite of his brave face that he puts on, he's actually terrified. He explicitly states that he's terrified of losing to Louise, but given the context of all that we've discussed, we can glean that Strohl's fear largely surrounds his innermost feelings of being a failure who doesn't provide value and support to others. His fear is that his efforts to do good and reverse his self-perceived debt to others in the world, as a noble of House Halietis, will ultimately be fruitless.
If Luis was behind it, then that's all I need to know. He's the one who'll answer for it. I have my own reason to fight now. I don't want to be an ally of convenience alone, so once more, please, let me join your cause.
What do you say, Grius?
I see keeping an eye on you was too much trouble in the first place.
So you've no objections? What say you, friend?
We're brothers in arms, my friend.
Brothers in... yes. I'll do my best to deserve that honor. Now, onward.
Strohl is your first companion, and it would be fair to say that he's your most ardent supporter. It's critical that Strohl joins you first because from the outside perspective, he adds legitimacy to your endeavors as a Clamar noble. Additionally, from an experiential point of view, his understanding of how the world works guides you constantly throughout the narrative. He's a legitimately valuable advisor, and throughout the entire narrative, his wit and creativity is a saving grace for the party at various junctures. He understands political positioning and keeps the party cognizant of how your actions will be perceived as you apply for the throne. Strohl is always quick to address the masses and spin things in your favor, such as after the first fight with Luis where you kill him. He leads the group many times in your stead, but it's never in a disrespectful way. It's always in situations where he feels his skill set is what is best suited. Strohl doesn't want power or to be the shot caller. He just wants to utilize his innate talents and advantages in the service of helping others, which of course connects back to the impact his parents had on his life. Honestly, I suspect that if we were to tally it up, Strohl probably has the most lines of dialogue in this game. So I'd imagine some people who play this game may feel like, well, Strohl talks and does so much, so why isn't he just the main character? Because there are a lot of moments in this game where you can feel like a passenger, and many of those are because of Strohl's presence, but I want to refute that sentiment that Strohl possesses more narrative importance than the main character, or the idea that Strohl is the real leader. To put it as simply as possible, Strohl couldn't do what you do. Through authenticity and proactive communication, both verbal and nonverbal, you as the main character are a great interpersonal connector. Your leadership and dedication to unconditional empathy creates a warmth and allure that no other character has in the narrative. You are the catalyst that draws his supporters to your cause, not Strohl. Strohl is a bit aloof because he's not over himself and the constant internal struggles that he has. His complex with living up to his parents' ideal of a noble, and his hatred towards Luis and humans for burning his home means that he's a bit difficult to connect with below the surface level. In fact, I say that it actually takes him the entire game to process through his internal feeling of being a failure and his hatred. This is especially clear in the epilogue where we see a light and grateful Strohl who seems to be so comfortable in who he is and what his goals are, and quite simply, happy. But I'd say as early as the final confrontation with Luis, you can see how much Strohl has grown. You can see that the journey across Uchronia has wizened Strohl in a way where he's able to act how his parents would and put aside his personal hatred and try to employ empathy with Luis. To continue explaining why Strohl couldn't do what the player character does in this story, While he's amicable with everyone, there's no point in the story where he deeply inspires somebody else or helps another character have an emotional breakthrough. For example, like how Hulkenberg guides Yufa to her archetype awakening. So, for the crowd that think that the writing is unbalanced and that Strohl could be the main character because of his large presence within the narrative, I respect you, but I rebuke that sentiment. All that said, I want to be clear that while Strohl couldn't do what you do, you absolutely cannot do what Strohl does. Let me expound upon this sentiment over in the relationship section.
Yufa, as the priestess, you can command the lance to return to you if it's far away, right?
You would have me use that power in reverse to cast it out instead?
According to Juna, the ceiling of the Opera House has a chandelier big enough to support a person. From above, we'll target Luis in the royal box seats.
You realize the entire audience is below that lighting? Wait, are you
Luis will be distracted. It's the best opportunity we could ask for. Besides, with Yufa there, we can even recover the lance easily.
So of course, the key relationship Strohl has in this game is with you, the main character. This starts very early on in the recruitment center when a racist Rusant is giving you a hard time. Strohl steps in and defends you even though you are a nobody from the world's lowest tribe. He does it simply because he saw injustice and so he cannot stand idly by. Now, as we know, the main character is actually condensed magla formed from the prince's ideals. This means, just like you and me as we play through the game for the first time, our actual self-insert, our actual character, is also learning a ton of things for the first time. So it's very organic and natural that the relationship between Strohl and the player character is one where they are often teaching each other. Strohl teaches you about the world, how things work, and courses of action to take. And you teach Strohl through your presence and empathy and gentle nudges here and there to completely expand and raise his emotional intelligence and capability to self-reflect. By the end of the game, you can really feel the brotherhood between you two and how he's grown into himself as a friend and an empathetic person. I believe the scene that best shows this was when he called out the king's bullshit when the king was showing the prince his memories in the royal palace dungeon. Rather than try to explain how things got this bad, Strohl would have preferred it if the king took responsibility and accountability and took steps to fix the situation. To be honest, I was thinking the same exact thing as I played. This scene conveyed how healthy Strohl's relationship with his parents was. That allowed him to quickly identify that the king was not being the greatest father to the prince by simply showing him these memories. At the same time, it showed that Strohl at this point is no longer so self-absorbed with his inner turmoil, and he does have the capacity now to actively empathize and support a friend beyond the surface level. Now, the other key relationship Strohl has in this game is with none other than Luis. When Strohl confronts Luis at his soiree, this is one of the best scenes in the entire game. It's very rich in terms of the amount of things it tells us. In fact, I can make an argument that this scene alone tells us literally every detail about who Strohl is as a person. So, you and your party are undercover, and it's imperative in this moment that you are not found out because you are actively searching for the curse's recipe aboard Luis's Skyrunner while this is happening. And yet, Strohl can't keep it together and confronts Luis while he is completely at his mercy, surrounded by all of his supporters. So, if we take a step back for a moment and take a holistic view of this sequence, there is literally no context where this makes sense. It is objectively a bad move that puts you and everybody in your party at risk. So how is it that your party's most savvy member is the one who's making this foolish mistake? It connects back to what we spoke about before. It's not just that Strohl views Luis as responsible for the death of all of his people and his parents, it's more than that. At this point in the story, Strohl would view Luis as basically the absolute antithesis to his parents. The Haliatus noble ideal, of course, is to uplift the weak, to be a shield. Otherwise, you are not of value to others. Luis's entire mantra is to forsake the weak and to let only the strong survive. So let's summarize everything that's happening within Strohl in this moment. He has these internal feelings of being a failure and not living up to his parents' ideal of a noble. He has a seething hatred of Luis for not lending aid to his village and views him as responsible for the horrific loss of life in which everyone he knew died. And he has a visceral inclination that Luis is the embodiment of everything his parents didn't want Strohl to be. In other words, Luis is the embodiment of injustice that Strohl is incapable of idly standing by and witnessing. This is why I believe Luis is the other key relationship for Strohl, because he incites outbursts in Strohl that we never see otherwise, and these outbursts reveal his inner turmoil. We also witness this when Strohl breaks into tears after Luis is slain. I think that in many ways, while it's never explicitly stated, Strohl sees overcoming and defeating Luis as his path to living up to his parents' ideal of a noble. This is the deeper meaning I interpret when, after Luis is slain, Strohl says, "At long last, my parents can rest in peace." At long last, his parents can rest knowing he lived up to their expectations and the standard they set as righteous nobles.
But today, finally, we have seen justice done. Luis has paid for his sins. And at last, at long last, my parents can rest in peace.
I had not realized you were such an actor. Or do you truly weep?
It's just hitting me now. We finally won.
Now let's talk symbolism when it comes to Strohl. I found some really intriguing stuff in my research, so bear with me. If you've watched my other character analysis videos, then you may recall that some of the characters in this game have names that were very deliberately chosen. Leon Strohl the Haliatus is one of those characters. Allow me to elucidate. The key parts of Strohl's name are Leon and Haliatus. Leon is of Greek origin and means lion, and Haliatus is in the most basic sense the scientific name for an eagle. Now, for some of you sitting there, I know that may not mean much to you. Like, lion and eagle, what do we do with that? But here's a little fun fact about myself. As we all know, everyone cycles through different hyperfixations when they are a child. One of mine just so happened to be Greek mythology, so where you might see lion and an eagle, I see griffin. For those who don't know, a griffin is a mythological creature that is the mix of a lion and an eagle. Symbolically, lions are often associated with power, bravery, and royalty, and are a symbol of leadership and strength in many cultures, representing dominance and protection. Eagles, as a bird that soars to greater heights than almost any other bird, symbolize a higher perspective and the ability to see beyond the ordinary, so they represent vision, wisdom, and freedom. You won't be surprised to know that griffins historically have symbolized a fusion of all of these qualities. Griffins are strength, courage, wisdom, royalty, and protection all rolled into one. At this point in the video, I'm sure you can glean the intentionality of Strohl's name now. His character, his identity, embodies the griffin. He's an indomitable warrior who resolutely protects the weak and rebukes injustice of all kinds. In spite of the fact that he is constantly terrified of failure and mortal peril, he puts on a brave face and exemplifies courage and strength. In spite of being a noble born with all the privilege in the world and existing in a society where all he has are benefits, he has the vision to look beyond and visualize and work for a world without discrimination. So you see, Strohl is quite clearly the embodiment of the griffin, as he concretizes all of the traits that the griffin represents symbolically. If we ruminate on everything we've discussed today, then I think we can all agree that any parent would hope for a son like Leon Strohl the Haliatus.
You call this real? Leaders abandon their people and the innocent die by their scorn. If that's the real world, then it can die alongside you! My name is Leon Strohl the Haliatus. My home and my family were taken from me. I am the last of my house. I am the last of my noble bloodline. And in the name of my people, I will strike you down where you stand!
Okay y'all, so this video is the 5th in a series where I'm doing a deep analysis of every major character in this game. I want to sincerely thank each one of you that has been here for each installment in this series. And I'd like to extend that same thanks for any of you who have only caught a few minutes here or there, or if this is your first video. Thank you for being here. I'm so glad that life weaved the path in a way that led you here. Definitely comment your thoughts on this one. As always, I'm eager to chat with you. If you're watching and you're not subscribed, come right in and join us. Subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. As I'm sitting here right now recording for us, we're almost at 600 subscribers, which means there's almost 600 of us sitting in this room discussing video games and a few other random things like anime and life in general. Seriously guys, this is incredible to me. I'm literally in awe as I say these things. Like, never forget that you all are the main reason that I make these videos, so whatever is going on in life, you are legitimately valued and appreciated here. If you enjoyed the video, please drop a like and let me know. Check out the other videos on my channel for more content like this. and have a great day, night, or morning, and remember to be kind and thoughtful. Peace.
Your Highness, you get in the runner first. We'll buy you some time for takeoff.
We can fight them together.
No. Even if we get the Skyrunner off the ground, it'll all be for naught if anything happens to you. No need to fuss anyway. We'll just kick them around for a bit while preparations are underway. Does that work for everyone else?
Fine. Suppose I'll keep you company.
Had you not suggested it, I would have done so myself.
What else are we gonna do? Twiddle our thumbs inside while Norris does all the work?
Nearus, don't let us down now.
Right. I'll get it done, damn it. Hop in, Your Highness.
Well, let's do this.